Hi there guys, Hugh here from the Builder's Office. I want to thank you for joining us today. And if you haven't subscribed or what's the other stuff for all the other platforms? It might be subscribe, it might be follow, join, whatever it may be. I hope you have, because as you know, we're talking about things that are really important for homeowners and the benefits that they can get from working with whoever it might be that they're working with to get the best out of their projects. And I love talking to everybody about what is really good and beneficial for their projects. So one of the things that I'm doing here in episode 38 is I'm sitting here with Robert from Builders Edge Consulting and the Builders Lounge. And we're going to be talking about some really fun stuff that are beneficial for homeowners from a builder's point of view, but also from someone who's helping builders, one, get registered as a builder, and getting all the information to these guys that can actually help them to better serve not only the building industry, but homeowners, to be able to get everything from their builds. Because let's face it, we're seeing some pretty out there things happening in the building industry at the moment. And while I know I sit around and I don't appreciate some of the things that get said, sometimes it's things that go out there into the media, or it might be the governing bodies as well that say some very, very interesting things, and this can be scary for homeowners. I want to thank Robert for joining me today. It's really, really great to sit down and have a chat. We've been discussing things for a long time, and we met many years ago now at an event, and it's always good to have a chat with people that are out there actively doing things to improve the industry and improve things for homeowners, who are ultimately the ones that either benefit or don't from what's going on out there. So thanks, Robert.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself and where you're at in the industry and the things that you sort of do.
Yeah, so I started and run Builders Edge Consulting, started that 2016. We primarily help tradespeople and building professionals obtain their builder registration here in Victoria. Prior to starting that, I was at the HOA for about 3 years, doing a very similar role. And then about 3 years ago now, we launched a post-registration service, if you like, called the Builders Lounge. So Builders Edge focuses on obviously training people up and helping them through the process of getting their registration. But we realised that obviously getting your registration and using your registration are very different things. So we had a lot of people coming back sort of asking us for advice and things like that on how to actually get up and running, and as a builder, making that transition from working for builders to being a builder. So that was sort of where the Builders Lounge was born. So that's our post-registration service and workshops and things like that.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Like the things that I've seen with the workshops that you've been holding for builders, the information that you're sort of getting to these guys is it's not just on how they're operating their business. It's not just about sort of what's happening out there in the industry or anything like that. Like it's holistic, and you're going through what's really going to be beneficial.
Yeah, we focus on a few different things. One is helping surround these new builders with a network of professionals. We like to call them sort of small local professionals. So we've obviously got the insurance guys. We've got a construction lawyer. So she kind of becomes the lawyer in your back pocket, anything to do with contracts, domestic building contracts and subcontract agreements, employment law and things like that. And then other services, OH&S, procurement organisations, estimating software and organisations. So, we spent the years going out and doing the research and trialling all the different programs and softwares and all the things that are out there. And we're not saying there's any right or wrong approach to it. It's just trying to fast track these guys in terms of so they don't have to do all the trial and errors and the research themselves. We kind of focus on that, and we really focus on the things that a builder needs to get right first before they can then go and, decide what they want to do, whether that's, go and turn over $5 million in 2 years, or, stay on the tools, or whatever it is they want to do. That, we don't feel there is a right or wrong way to do any of that. Everyone's different. Everyone's at different stages of life with kids and family and work, and some people want heaps of jobs and lots of employees, and other people don't want any employees and just want to do one job at a time. So irrespective of all of that, you still need to know how to fill out and manage domestic building contracts. You still need to know how to deal and manage with clients. You still need to know how to price a job properly as a builder, not as a tradie, but as a builder. And then you still need to know what your obligations are as a builder. These are now your sites. So we do speak a lot about, well, you've gone and worked on other people's sites. Now you own the site. You've got now people turning up to work on your site. So what are all your obligations now? So just trying to get all that in a row, get it all sorted, and then they can go out and decide what they want to do. So we're kind of like the pre-business coach, if you like. There's no point worrying about, times 10 in your profit and getting off the tools if you don't know how to fill out a contract and sign up a job in the first place.
Yeah. Well, I know when I got registered myself back in 2016, I went through a company to help me sort of learn the things that I didn't know, because coming off a trade background of being carpenter, there was a lot of things that you just don't know, and you pick up the application to become a registered builder, and you start reading it and going, holy shit, there's so much missing. Yes, I might have done a Cert 4 back in 2009, but how relevant was that as I'm working through it all? And people also say, oh, well, if you've done a Cert 4, that can prepare you for getting registered. No, not at all. The experience and that sort of thing that comes into it afterwards is it's really immense. And like even people that say, oh, if you get a diploma, you can skip things to get registered. Well, you can't really skip the experience. And
that's all formalities, that's just part of the process. That's part of the legislation and part of the way the VBA deals with people. And we know, obviously, with Builder's Edge, we know preparing people to get the registration, we only focus on, what's your experience? Great, we can tick those boxes. All right, now let's help you navigate your way through the books and study and prepare for the exam and the interview. I mean, that's all that service is focused on. And we know these people, by the time they get through that process, they're well aware that, all right, that's great, you've helped me get the license. Okay, how do I actually go? What do I actually go out and do now? How do I use this thing?
Saw the gap there. That as soon as you get registered, there's people just going out there and they start doing things, and then they quickly work out, well, crap, I don't have the necessary skills, and that starts to see with then they start to see the horror stories that happen.
and as you know, you'll appreciate being a builder yourself, the only people that truly understand a domestic builder in Victoria are other domestic builders in Victoria. Your contractors, your subbies, they think they understand, but they don't. Same with the homeowners and other people you talk to, but in reality, the only other person that really truly understands your obligations as a builder are other builders.
Yeah, and this was one of the reasons why I started doing this podcast in the first place, was so that there could be an avenue for homeowners, for other building professionals, to be able to sort of get a grasp on what goes on in the workings in the back of the mind of a builder. Because at the end of the day, there's so many different things that we're plucking one thing from over here, and we've got to meet some of the demands that happen with the VBA, and then we've got the demands that happen with a building surveyor. Keeping our registration might mean that we have to do some CPD points and get some professional development happening and that sort of thing from there. But then you start going to the other side of the equation. Once you get those things sort of ticked off and you've registered and you've got your business sort of moving along and you've got some turnover, but then when it comes to dealing with clients and the expectations that they have and that sort of thing, then you start finding all of the little nuances that can start to really either pull you apart that you wouldn't have seen as a trade contractor. and that world, that huge divide that happens in there, like we see it all the time, and and we experience the fun stuff when the trades are going, oh, this isn't happening in the way that it should, or we need this, and we don't give a shit about your bottom line because we've got to make ours work, or something like that. And there's so many variables and the amount of stuff going through a builder's head the whole time.
And there's too much misinformation out there, and that's one of the problems, and we spoke about it earlier. There's so many gaps in the industry in terms of the wider industry. There's gaps of communication, understanding between the homeowner and the builder, between the homeowner, the builder, and the building surveyor. The people that are dealing with the plans and the documentation before it even gets to the building surveyor. The draft to the engineer, things like that, and then we're not even on site yet. And then once you get to site with the builder, then there's gaps again between the builder and the contractors, and then again the homeowner. So there's all these gaps, and then there's the regulatory authorities. There's the insurances. I mean, I still don't understand now everything we've been through, particularly in with COVID and everything else, and the VMIA and the insurances, how there's still so much misinformation about domestic building insurance and what it actually does and how it works. None of that gets communicated effectively throughout the industry.
No.
Nothing regulatory gets communicated effectively in the industry. And I'll never forget, and this goes to a side topic of sort of the whole registration of licensing and trades. Again, another thing that's hasn't been communicated effectively throughout the industry, which is meant to be coming at some point. I've said that for the last 4 years. My old executive director at the HOA, Gil King, he said, this was 10 years ago now, 9 years ago, he said, and he was fighting for registration of trades back then.
Yes.
Because he said the only way that you can communicate with the industry is to make the entire industry part of the regulatory body. Because the only people that are part of the regulatory body are the registered builders, and there's 25,000 in Victoria. Master Builders estimates 350,000 people that work in the industry, right? So as a percentage, the regulatory authority, being the VBA, can only communicate with this tiny little percentage of the industry. But they are regulating the whole industry, but they just can't communicate. I think fundamentally it all starts with that.
And like we spoke about earlier, the regulatory side of things, especially with the governing body, and if we just touch on the warranty insurance debacle that's continuing to go on and is probably going to continue for a long time at the moment, with that being essentially unregulated, and for me, the things that I've seen with it not being regulated from the perspective of, okay, we've put in legislation that you've got to have warranty insurance, but nobody's policing it to make sure that this is actually being followed to the letter of the law, and before anybody's taken any payment from the client for a deposit, that warranty insurance is in place. And we saw it happen with a volume builder that's no longer with us, and that's created a debacle. And now warranty insurance increases have happened. The premise for the increase is totally justified, and we understand that. Being able to explain that to clients now, because there's once again another increased cost that's come in on top of a myriad of others. And where's the policing actually going to come into it? They say that they're going to do it, but how long is it going to take for this to happen?
Yeah, and there's also how as well, especially when, if you look at other states, Queensland, for instance, the QBCC, the Queensland Building Construction Commission, they're also the insurance providers.
Yes.
Right. So there's arguments that make sense, but also that's almost corruptive in its own way. If you've got the regulatory body and they're also the insurance underwriter. Like
a conflict of interest there.
Yeah, but is that easier to police? I don't know.
Well, does there need to be a registration of building contracts?
Yeah, potentially. I mean, it's interestingly, it's one of those things where prior to what you mentioned with it coming out and into the light that builders were taking deposits without providing insurance, I kind of had my head in the sand a little bit, assuming that, well, of course, like, and part of the training we do is, well, the domestic building insurance insures the contract.
Yep.
So as soon as the contract's signed, the insurance needs to be taken out because that's what it's insuring. So I just assumed that's what all builders did. But then after what happened, as you say, earlier this year, when it came to light that, well, they weren't actually providing the insurance, but they were taking the deposits. It's funny how many new builders, and I use the term new builder, anyone that's been building for 2 to 3 years, I feel as a new builder. Most of them weren't actually taking out the insurance until they went to start the job.
Yep.
I'm thinking, man, this actually happens quite a lot out there.
It does.
But they're also a little bit, I didn't really realise. It had to be done at some point. So
when you read through the Domestic Contracts Act, it's spelled out in black and white.
It is, yep. So it's one of those things where, and that's, again, it comes back to part of the reason we started the Builders Lounge, is just try and sit down with these guys when they're starting out and be like, look, this is what you're meant to do, and here's why, right? These are the steps why.
Yep.
Like, just make sure you do it. It's part of the process. It's part of your obligation of being a builder. Leads on to other things, like your contract works insurance.
Yep.
Things like that. We talk about a lot of holes between, if you're doing renovation extension projects, where's the line in the sand between what your insurance provides and what the homeowners insurance provides?
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
And it was amazing how many people would look back at jobs they've done and be like, far out.
Imagine if this had happened, we would have been stitched up
Yeah.
and we would have been out quite a lot. And that sort of thing happens so much.
Yep.
And like we're told constantly, insure this, insure that, and go through all of your insurances. And like I work with a broker and we go through all of the different things. So making sure that we've got our contract works insurance, our public liability. Also, if we need professional indemnity and all these sorts of things, because if we're giving advice as consultants, I'm sorry, we need the professional indemnity.
Yep, and the PI is a big one. And we say to guys, how many times have you stood there on site with an off-cut of, yellow tongue or whatever, and you're doing a construction detail with your pencil, with your chippies or whatever, working out how to do something because the drafty's drawings don't actually work.
Yep.
So you come up with your own design and you'd be like, yeah, sweet, I will do it that way. I say to the guys, you've just owned that design.
Yep.
And you got no insurance for that.
Yep.
And they're like, well, what do we do? I'm like, well, sure, do that, but then take a photo of it, send it to the drafty. Can you draw this up, amend the drawings? Now it's not you don't own it anymore.
Yep.
Just little things like that. They're like, oh, yeah, okay, that makes sense.
As soon as you start making changes on a design or anything like that, you're owning it. And the owners, for the homeowners, if they want things changed, the ownership goes on to them before anything else. So, I guess you could say how much are we doing that's all liable for us, and how much risk
is massive.
It's massive.
It's huge.
It's huge, and it's one of those funny things. Like how much does a builder, and if a homeowner is doing this as an owner builder, they start to realise the liability that comes onto them. Like a owner builder, they have to warrant their house just the same as a builder does.
Yeah,
and I've seen an owner builder build a duplex, so townhouses side by side, and then sold one, kept one for rental, but the one that they sold ended up with a myriad of issues, and it related back to things like roof plumbing. And the roof plumber had come in, and one of the fun things, as we know, and if you've seen certain inspectors on Instagram and TikTok and all that sort of thing, then you hear about non-compliant works, and this was one of those times where it was non-compliant, and the issue came back that the new owner ended up speaking to the VBA. The VBA came out, inspected things, and that fell back onto the owner builder. Yep. These are the sorts of things that can happen. So compliance with everything, if you're not doing it and you don't know it, at least go and get the information.
Yep. Yeah. Owner builders are a funny one. I actually had a Builders Lounge client that we're doing some one-on-one stuff with. I was speaking to him yesterday, and he said, he goes, you know that big job is about to sign up? We spoke a couple of months ago. He goes, yeah. He goes, I think I'm going to pull out of it. I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, well, I'm about to sign the contracts, but I got a bad feeling. He goes, the owners just asked about a couple of things, and my gut's just not there. I'm like, mate, I will never tell someone not to go against their gut.
Yak Production.